Welcome to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, where high performers learn how to stop guessing and start aging stronger, not slower. Your host is Coach Debbie Potts, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, metabolic health coach, and host of this show. Here, we dive into the why behind fatigue, stubborn weight, hormone chaos, gut issues, and declining performance. Using real data, functional lab testing, metabolism analysis, and simple daily habits that actually move the needle. Whether you're an endurance athlete, an executive, or simply committed to becoming your strongest future you, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Coach Debbie Potts Show. I'm your host, Debbie Potts, and I'm going into the next level talking about the FLOW method, the terrain theory, and how we need to create terrain, improve your terrain before we do whatever we need to do based on our health investigation. Lab testing is amazing to get really hidden clues instead of guessing. We say test and not guess. I'm an FDN practitioner, which means functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. Really, I think of that role is health investigator. I'm getting clues, putting together what you can do to be your best self in the future. I'm also a nutritional therapy practitioner where we work on the foundations and looking at signs and symptoms and how that correlates to function of the body and how we can restore the body's innate intelligence, finding homeostasis to create metabolic harmony. So my goal is to help you be fit and healthy on the outside with your exercise program. That you might look great with your lifting strength training, but what are you doing to improve your health on the inside? And what really matters is, are your priorities changing as you get older? I'm suddenly 55 this November. I don't know how. I just turned 50. I always thought I was still 45, but suddenly 10 years later, I'm turning 55. And my goals have changed to what I used to be is, what race are you training for this season? What are you doing next? What event? And now it's more, okay, I don't want to have happen what happens to our parents. I don't want to be having these struggles getting up and down out of a chair. And what we know now is so much more than our parents grew up with. But you know what? I think so many athletes, active individuals, think they're superhuman. You think you're invincible because you're able to bike, run, swim, hike, whatever sports you do, endurance sports. But are you actually breaking yourself down more than building up? That's what happened to me when I was doing Ironmans every year, off season of Ironmans. I do 50K trail running. I was into always 1 or 2 marathons and then half marathons where you're training runs for your marathons. And then, to qualify for Ironman Hawaii, I'd have to do obviously a race to qualify. So I'd end up doing 2 Ironmans. And then to train for an Ironman, you want to do a half Ironman and sprint races. So I used to race all the time. But now, since I had my own awakening with my adrenal exhaustion, whatever, metabolic chaos starting 2013 has led me down this path to be the practitioner I needed back in those days when I was racing and not really understanding. I was breaking myself down. We're on the other side of the bell curve that you're exercising, but we think more is better. And we are not finding that right Goldilocks effect of how much exercise, nutrition, recovery, all of the things that we need to do to be our best self in the future. So I hope you're a health optimizer and you're thinking in middle age, not about what races you're doing this year, but what am I doing to be my best self when I'm 70 and 80, 90 years old? We're planning on living in Europe a few months a year and biking in the mountains, swimming in the ocean, going running on trails, and all this stuff. We need to be taking care of ourselves today and not breaking ourselves down. And I'm actually reading Joe Friel's new book that I'm going to interview him in a few weeks on how you need to train differently for the aging athlete. Just what I've been talking about. He talks about for the over 50 crowd. So that's what I'm trying to do on this podcast and these series. You might think this has nothing to do with being athletic, when I talk about bile flow, lymph flow, but it really does matter if we talk about cell danger response, because this is all that happened to me. And now I'm figuring out, oh, dang, I was in sympathetic dominance. I was in survival mode. I was doing all this AMPK activation, and I was lifting weights all the time because I own a fitness studio. That was my job, personal trainer, coach. I did health coaching back then as well, but I was going all day long. And so when we talk about this series of the TRAIN method, the TRAIN foundation, the FLOW foundation, this is one of the biggest things I've learned after years of being an endurance athlete, a coach, a practitioner, metabolic health testing, investigating all these clues, is understanding our body doesn't need more force. What if we think about improving the foundation first? As I talked about, if you had a flood in your basement, do you start remodeling your house upstairs? We need to work on what's beneath and doing enough flow, because healing is not simply adding in more supplements, taking more NAD, more mitochondria support, more longevity supplements, exercising more, detoxing, fasting, more discipline. I know I'm looking at my body. I want to be smaller, lose some fat weight. I'm not trying to exercise more. I'm changing what I'm doing. Insanity is doing the same program over and over again, expecting different results, right? So doing more detoxing, more fasting, being more disciplined, and when I start and stop eating and how much I eat and my exercise program, maybe perhaps your body's just overwhelmed because your communication and the movement inside the systems have been impaired. What if your body can't heal well with the information? It can't move. When you can't move the oxygen in your body, you can't move the waste out of your body. When the inflammatory signals are not clearing out, they're just accumulating. And if your bile is that stagnant river instead of flowing river, and it's just congested. When your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic dominance into feeling unsafe. And this is why I've put together this FLOW foundation. It's not a wellness hack, but think of it as a framework to help us understand, is my physiology becoming stagnant? Is this why I feel stuck and stiff and congested in my own body? And why running, when I try to run longer, I don't get anywhere. I'm not progressing. And I used to be amazing at zone 2 for 2-3 hours. It was simple for me. It was easy. But now I just feel heavy and clumpy and just blah. But I can bike, but that's not weight bearing. So we need to know why so many high-performing individuals are feeling exhausted, even though they come to me and they say, I'm doing all the right things. And it looks good on paper. But what are we missing? And that's why I came up with the FLOW. That stands for F, for freeing up the nervous system. Lymph is L, the lymphatic flow. O is for oxygen. And W is for waste removal. Think of waste and bile flow. All of our systems we've talked about constantly communicate together. If one system is congested, sluggish, the other systems are going to be impacted as well. It's that domino effect. Think of it as this terrain first physiology. When we talk about everything being connected to create metabolic harmony, we need to make sure we're focusing on that nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is constantly scanning the environment we've talked about, right? Seeing if you can recover, repair. Can you digest that food? Can you repair from that workout you just did? Are you nourished? Or am I focusing on surviving right now? One of the major communication highways we've talked about a ton is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, remember, communicates information from the gut, the liver, the microbiome, the lungs, the immune system, the inflammatory environment, the heart, and the brain interprets that information. We get 20% messages from the brain to the gut, the efferent, E, exit, and then afferent messages from the gut back up to the brain are 80%. So if the brain's getting this information that the gut sent back up to it and it perceives any danger, we are going to have physiology change in our body. This is a big reason I got down this rabbit hole is the stomach acid. Is it decrease? Digest enzymes. Gut motility, is it slow? Are we constipated or do we have diarrhea? Do we have blood flow shifting away from digestion? Is there bile release from the gallbladder slow? Or did you get your gallbladder even taken out because of that? And now you just have this constant drip of your liver releasing bile because we don't have the gallbladder to store it. Is your inflammation increasing? What do we see in your blood chemistry panel and other lab tests with your inflammation? Do we have gut issues and we're seeing leaky gut signs and symptoms? I find this looking at why does this happen? Why does that happen? We work backwards before that, and we come to the vagus nerve. Digestion and repair are metabolically expensive, and muscle is expensive. Detoxification, healing. So whenever the brain is getting the message that there's danger down below, the body is protecting you. And we need that, right? It should prioritize survival over optimization. This is why chronic stress physiology may contribute to your bloating, your acid reflux, your constipation or diarrhea issues, your food sensitivities, your fatigue, your recovery, your hormone, your thyroid issues, poor nutrient absorption, inflammation. Because the nervous system is not trying to sabotage you, but it's protecting you. And sometimes protection might become chronic if we're stuck in that sympathetic nervous system. Because if our body thinks we have this chronic stress shifting us to sympathetic dominance, then we're feeling this sense of priorities are all on us surviving, safety. Our body needs to feel safe. And this is why I always come back to conversations with my guests on the role of the vagus nerve in whatever topic. Why nervous system and neural flow matters, and why a resilient nervous system can respond to stress and then return back to recovery, that acute stress versus chronic stress. And this is how we want to be adaptability. This is why I'm focused on being more resilient this year. So the L in the flow method is called L for lymphatic flow. And this is one of the most overlooked symptoms in modern health. I try to bring this up with certain guests and get experts on the show on this topic. Your lymphatic system is moving immune cells, inflammatory compounds, toxins, cellular debris, waste products, excess fluid. I think of the lymph flowing through your body is kind of the garbage service coming around. Say we have garbage pickup on Thursdays. Wednesday nights, I go around and pick up the garbage from the garbage cans around the house in each room. I'm picking up the garbage and then I'm putting it in the garbage can. Then I'm taking it down to the curb for the garbage men to pick it up on Thursdays. That's what I think of the lymph system is going around, picking up everything, bringing it to the liver. It sorts the garbage into the different categories and then removes the bile, removes the toxins through our drainage pathways. That's why we need to have a good poop every day at least once. We need to make sure the garbage is taken out and the garbage is picked up, because if the garbage men go on strike and that garbage doesn't get picked up every day, well, ours is once a week, but if your body's garbage doesn't get picked up by having good elimination every day, it's going to accumulate. And then we have this pile of garbage stuck in our body as it's stuck on the curb. I also like to think of this lymphatic system going around the body. It doesn't have a pump. And I have a few good episodes on this with different experts on the lymph and fascia and the vagus nerve. Remember, the cardiovascular system has a heart pumping. Heart pumps to move that blood through the system. The lymphatic system doesn't have a heart. Its pump is you breathing and moving. That diaphragm needs to pump and move that flow, and our body moving. Muscle contractions, the calf. So breathing, muscle contractions, fascia mobility, hydrating that fascia, good minerals, and that nervous system's connected here on having good fascia flow. And so when I see what happens to my parents and losing my dad and seeing all their friends at the same in their 80s are all starting to have these problems. But when I look at why are they having these problems and do my root cause investigation backwards, look at why people have sluggish lymphatic flow. They're sedentary, chronic stress. It can be not, stress. You might think of financial stress, environmental stress. It could be that everyone's living on a golf course, so they have the stressors of the environment, the toxins on the grass, the glyphosate, the sprays they put all over there. They're breathing that in. And then how people breathe. Part of it, I think posture's poor. Everyone's rounded over and they can't stand up straight. So they're having even more breathing problems. They don't breathe through their nose. They're breathing through their mouth. They're dehydrated. I barely can get my mom to drink a glass of water each day and keep refilling it and putting minerals in her water. And then the fascia is dehydrated. So we have fascia restriction. All of this can contribute to a sluggish lymphatic flow. And so when I look back at my mom and my dad both had kidney issues, and you see people when they travel or they're sitting, they have this puffy, swollen ankles. I started to look into that. Why is that happening? Why does that happen? So I got back up that rabbit hole and ended up with the lymphatic system. Puffy, inflamed, swollen, you're foggy, heavy, you feel congested. This is why gentle movement throughout the day matters so much. Not just I'm going to the gym, we lifted weights, we rode our bikes today, maybe I'll swim, but we need to move throughout the day. We need good walking, especially after you eat, good diaphragmatic breathing to move that lymph and mobility work. We want to sweat. We want to hydrate with electrolytes in that water. Use a rebounder or just bounce using the dry brush before the sauna, before you shower. These are not random wellness trends. I've talked to different Ayurvedic medicine experts. Ayurvedic medicine is fascinating. Chinese medicine. Look at all the history of different cultures, how it's been around for thousands of years. The body needs to give movement signals, physiological movement signals. The body needs movement to create circulation and for clearance. So think of bodies designed to flow. We have good oxygen flow, and we need good waste removal. So when we talk about the flow foundation, we're talking about all this together. And going to oxygen, looking at every cell needs oxygen. So when I do Pinoy metabolism testing to figure out how much fat to carbohydrate you burn, that's the ratio of the oxygen to carbon dioxide. So when we're having a resting metabolism or active test where you're wearing a face mask, we're measuring how much oxygen are you taking out and how much carbon dioxide are you moving out. We want to look at oxygen flow into every cell. Every cell needs oxygen, but oxygen flow is about far more than just simply breathing. Oxygen delivery of oxygen, that flow in your blood flow to the muscles needs circulation, that heart pumping, moving that blood through. But we talked to Dr. Nathan Bryan a few times about nitric oxide to help blood flow, the red blood cells, iron status, our blood sugar stability, mitochondria function, and more. But the important part to understand is that you can still breathe oxygen, but I started to see how many people struggle to use oxygen efficiently. When I saw so many people working for different doctors I've done contract work for, were nasal, not nasal breathing, and they're using CPAP machine while they're sleeping at night. They struggle to breathe in efficiently. And this is where I started to look at what is the role of mitochondria, because the mitochondria need oxygen. We need oxygen to burn fat. And if we're not using that oxygen and delivering it properly, the mitochondria, if they're not getting enough oxygen, what a signal are they getting? Do we have enough nutrients? Are we safe? Are we able to recover? Do we need to conserve? Then it kind of tie in that cell danger response. When oxygen use is impaired, we're getting lack of oxygen in and delivering it to where it needs to go. People might experience fatigue if the mitochondria are not getting enough oxygen delivered into the cells. Your endurance is going to be a struggle. So your exercise intolerance will be an issue. Poor recovery from workouts, brain fog, reduction in metabolic flexibility. You might experience less resiliency. And this is why I love to test with Pinoy metabolism testing. Most people just look at what's your VO2 max. I'm looking at all these other clues I can get from this test. I can evaluate your oxygen utilization at rest and during various intensity levels. You don't have to do a max VO2 test to do that. Your efficiency of using fat versus carbohydrates, how well you breathe, and your recovery capacity more. Remember, capacity needs to happen before intensity. You can't force performance from a system that's lacking that oxygen. And recovery, ability to bounce back from that workout. And that applies to everyday life as well, not just your workouts. And this is another clue I got from metabolism testing. If we're trying to force fat loss, improve that fat burning efficiency marker, we can't just say do more zone 2, do more sprint interval training, but it might not work for people if we're not getting good flow, oxygen flow, nitric oxide delivery. So we need to figure out what's best for that individual. We can't force that performance and force healing while the body is physiologically exhausted. So this is where N=1 and working with each client. Now, let's finish up talking about the W of flow, waste and bile flow. The body's constantly creating waste, right? We've got hormones that must be metabolized. We have these inflammatory compounds that need to be cleared out of the system. The liver detox pathways, phase 1 and phase 2 is producing toxins, and phase 3 is that garbage, those toxins being moved out of the system. The bile must move the toxins out. So that's why you must have a flowing river, not a stagnant swamp. So the bile is not moving out. We need the bile to move those toxins out. So the colon must be eliminating regularly, and our kidneys must be working, filtering and eliminating as well. And what's interesting, the microbiome has to coordinate with the immune system. So this is why I'm always talking about drainage before detox. We learn that from working with people. You just see it backfire. And look at cell core. We talk about that with cell core protocols. Drainage first. One of the biggest mistakes I see people is aggressively doing detoxing when the drainage pathways are impaired. Or even I found that people adding in hormone replacement therapy, estrogen, if they're not getting rid of the used estrogen. And they're not doing good elimination every day, the drainage pathways are impaired. If they're constipated, if they have the stagnant bile flow, they have the sluggish lymph system. Remember, you got to work backwards. Why does everything happen? Go before that. What happens? Look at order of operations. So if we have poor hydration, we have poor digestion habits, our nervous system is overloaded, we're not having good motility, we're not pooping, we're not peeing. So doing aggressive detox, even though we see these markers that need detoxification on their stool test, if I started them too early on a detox protocol, it's going to probably add more stress and backfire. And it's kind of adding more traffic onto a blocked highway. So we need to focus on bile flow, and remember that bile flow not just influences fat digestion. I did a few episodes on this. Bile, I got into this because so many people that had estrogen dominance, I look at their biomarkers and put the clues together going, do we have good hormone clearance? Toxic elimination. How's our microbiome balance looking? Fat soluble vitamin absorption, A, D, E, and K. Do we have inflammatory signaling? What are our blood chemistry inflammatory markers of CRP looking at? Because bile depends on these upstream signals. So I always start with the vagus nerve. Do we have good stomach acid? Do we have good minerals, hydration, liver support, gallbladder contraction to release that bile, and good motility? We need strong parasympathetic activation because stress alone can impair this bile movement. And remember, when bile slows down, your digestion will suffer, but also your hormones are going to recirculate, the toxins, the microbiome balance is going to shift, and inflammation you'll see increase. But again, guess what? Everything's connected. So let's bring it together. The cell danger response asks, remember, is the cell safe? The nervous system is asking, is this organism safe? The immune system's asking, is there a threat? And the microbiome signals, is the environment stable? And when the mitochondria say, hey, should we build or defend? That's when we need to look using the FLOW method to go, hey, can we get this information? What is it telling us? Can information, oxygen, the nutrients, the hormones, immune, waste, can all this flow efficiently, move through the system without obstacles? Because when flow becomes impaired, what we went over, oxygen delivery is dropping down. Your waste is going to accumulate if the garbage isn't picked up, if they're on strike. If the lymph is stagnant and not flowing around and picking up the garbage from each room of your house. If the bile is sitting there not flowing, it's to be swampy, sticky, congested. If our inflammation is increasing everywhere. If the energy production is going down, the mitochondria are struggling, going on cell danger response, low battery mode. So we need to remember, if our body is stuck in this survival physiology, which I am sure I was in for years until I moved here, the goal is not perfection. Again, my word of the year is resiliency. Maybe next year it'll be adaptability, recovery, the ability to respond to stress and then return to balance. That's the goal. And that's what we're working on. This train first method is not to force healing. We need to create the condition where healing becomes possible. So reflect on today's episode and ask yourself, do I feel fit and healthy on the outside? Am I feeling healthy on the inside? What are my symptoms? Where might I have any flow being stuck in my body? Do I feel constantly overwhelmed? Is my nervous system helping recovery, or is it blocking it and keeping me in the survival mode? Am I helping getting oxygen delivered and helping recovery? Am I peeing and pooping, having good drainage and elimination daily? Do I feel that I'm moving throughout the day? Am I nourishing my body at a cellular level every day? Or do I feel that I'm adding more stress to a body that's already stuck in this protection survival mode? Remember, healing depends on movement, not just physical movement. It's our goal today, is to understand physiological cellular movement, that communication, the flow that we need. So hopefully this series, the Train First Theories, this is episode 3 on the flow signals in the future you. Next episode, I think we'll dive a little deeper into this vagus nerve. I want you to go back and connect the efferent versus afferent messages, that gut-brain communication, and look at what your heart rate variability really means, because I know many people are wearing their devices as Whoop and Aura, but they don't really use that information correctly. I don't think it's really that accurate because it's not giving you the breakdown, but it's a good baseline. So we'll go over that next time. But remember, the future you is built through the signals you are creating today. So keep curious, keep investigating, and being fit and healthy from the inside out as you age. So remember, this podcast is educational purposes only. I love to share what I'm thinking about and learning with you. It's not medical advice. Be sure to partner with your own qualified health practitioner or reach out for help or referrals. I am here for you to help you be your best self in the future. So I look forward to hearing from you. Reach out to debbiepotts.net and be sure to head over to the YouTube channel and hit subscribe to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, and on Instagram, Coach Debbie Potts as well. And if you come down North San Diego, if you want to do a resting and active metabolism testing and get the interpretation of the data my way, let me know. I do testing by appointment in Solana Beach. Great place to be. You can go to Del Mar, Encinitas, Leucadia, Cardiff, and just hang out in North San Diego. Get a good beach walk in and good food, good tacos. Go to the taco stand, go for a walk afterwards. It's a great place to be. So I look forward to hearing from you. Hopefully you're on a mission to be your best self and live your best self in the future, along with me. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Coach Debbie Potts Show. If today's episode sparked a light bulb moment, that's your sign to stop guessing and start building your personalized future you blueprint. You can learn more or book a discovery call at www.debbiepotts.net. Be sure to follow the show on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Coach Debbie Potts. 2 T's. If this episode helped you, please subscribe, rate, and review. It's how we help more people age with strength, energy, and clarity. Until next time, remember, age is inevitable. How you age is not.